to the 2020 EmpowerMint Conference. Hello from the exec team.
My name is Josh Foster, co-founder and CEO.
And I'm Sharon Pearson, co-founder and CTO.
And my name is Marquita Amwa, the editor-in-chief. We're excited to share this dynamic panel with you today.
Please feel free to take notes and join us in the live breakout room to debrief after the panel concludes. Everybody for joining us today for this develop panel of the EmpowerMint 2020 conference. We have two dynamic guests here today. They have a lot of great things going for them, and I won't even do justice in being able to give them my own definition and biography of what they do. So I'm gonna have both of you guys give a little brief introduction on yourself. Charles, we can start with you, and Sam follow up on who you are and what you do.
Man, I was gonna let Sam go first, but sure, I'll go first. Man, who am I? My name is Charles Olgesby. I would say that I work in the legal field, so I have a law degree. I work in personal injury law as a profession. But I have a company called Tide Capital, which does a few different things. We do investment clubs and stocks, real estate, stock options, have a podcast, have a blog, have vending machines, have a barbershop, and I think I'm missing something. Maybe I'm not. And so we just do a lot of really cool things. We have had success from the beginning. So I guess one of the things that I was missing is we do a lot of business development as well. So I've helped a lot of people with their LLCs, helped them with their marketing, helped them kind of build their brand, because my passion really is that we all win, not just one of us win. And so for me, I put as much energy behind me winning as I put in other people winning, because I just feel like we can't really win unless all of us are touching it. And so I've created communities where people are creating their own products, creating their own informational, products as well, to help people promote this idea of teaching us what they don't teach us. So there's so much that I do. A lot of it has to do with collective economics and just kind of acting on the powernomics principles that are outlined by Dr. Claude Anderson and Dr. George Watkins and Dr. Umar Johnson. So many dope individuals who are just teaching us how to come together and build. But that is me, undergrad degrees in finance, and I got a lot of my experience just working from that. And so I worked in financial advising, started working in private banking, and then I realized like what I was selling wasn't really helping my people. And so I had to figure out a way to match my knowledge with my people, and that's what Tide Capital is.
Love it. Thank you. Sam, what about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Sam Dolcine. I'm the host of the Black Real Estate Dialogue podcast, pretty much a podcast sharing the stories of Black real estate investors. Also recently ventured into selling my own digital product, ebook and webinar, helping people start and monetize their podcasts. Also do affiliate marketing, a lot for Charles. So that's kind of who I am. 9 to 5. I work in HR, recruiting. Been doing that for about 6 years.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, again, we're definitely really grateful for both of you to be here, and we'll dive into it. Sam, we'll start with you on this one. So don't worry, Charles, I got you. So Sam and Charles, it's going to be the same question, but so what would you consider your develop origin story to be? Basically, where do you see the roots of your passion to develop your venture and your podcast? Where did that begin?
Yeah, so with the podcast, it's interesting because I just got kind of fed up with people around me and just people in general complaining about us not owning anything, us not investing in real estate, and just being around a lot of people who didn't think it was possible. And at the time I hadn't purchased any real estate yet. And I'm like, what can I do? What can be my contribution? And I remember me and you, Josh, we were on the couch, you just moved to that apartment. And I said, hey, what if I started a podcast? I don't know what that means. I don't know what that looks like. I've listened to some, but and you just said, do it. And so, from there, I kind of mapped it out and I'm like, I think this could be my contribution, my way to help. Originally, I thought, I guess maybe the people around me will listen and hear from someone else's perspective than me saying it, because a lot of times people listen more to other people than themselves. So that's originally what I thought it would be, just people just in my immediate circle. and it's turned into a lot more. But I'd say that moment really, well, I guess a combination years of just being around that kind of thing, and I'm like, you know what, I need to do something about it and not complain along with everybody else. So that's kind of was the root of it.
I think you're being humble with saying it got to be a lot more. It blew up, man. It definitely did. And it took a lot of time. But yeah,
Thank you.
definitely done a great job with that. So the same question for you, Charles. Where do you see the root of your success and your passions for what you're doing? Where did that kind of develop from?
So I listened to a lot of Dame Dash. And Dame Dash, she went to private school, went to boarding school. And I always tell people that, like, when you're in private school and boarding school, everybody has money, because you can't have money you can't be there unless you have money. And for me, I feel like what took me to that place is exposure. And so when you get into these spaces where you're working at Edward Jones and you can't even have a client unless they have a substantial amount of wealth, or when you work in private banking, which is what I was doing, and you work with people who have $250,000 or more, likely more. Literally, I would walk into the bank and my only responsibility was to talk to wealthy people. But the great thing about the bank is you can see what they have. You can literally see what they have in their checking, their savings, their line of credit, their investment accounts. You can see it all. So it wasn't like you see people and they have a nice watch and you assume they have money. No, I see somebody who walks in, looks like an everyday Joe, and I see that he has money. And so for me, that exposure, and I started to analyze why they did it. Are they business owners? Are they lawyers? Are they doctors? Are they an Asian family that has a lot of people working together and sharing resources? And I started to realize this is what we have to do if we want that. Because a lot of us want that, but we're not necessarily doing those things. Maybe it's because we don't know. Maybe because we know we just don't want to do them. It's two different things. And so for me, I started putting together the pieces that would say, like, okay, well, let's create collective economics organizations that will allow us to buy real estate, will allow us to buy stocks, will allow us to share information and give out game and help people and educate people. And so for me, I feel like just being exposed to how other successful communities lived helped me see how you do it in America. Because it's one thing to see it. It's another to see how you do it in the country that so many people think it's not possible. Yeah. And so when you realize how you can maneuver, it's like, man, if more of us just knew we don't got to change the system, we just got to maneuver around it, then we could all win. And we don't got to change anybody. It's a lot easier to change yourself and your community than it is to change somebody else. And so, like, that's kind of the inception of it for me. And I feel like we've had some success, and I'm happy to see it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think what's really unique about what both of your journeys are, both of you guys kind of talk about the idea of exposure. Same for you is you wanted to give more exposure to people about people that look like us, that are owning things, that are being able to develop something and just get into generational wealth. And for you, Charles, like you're saying, that exposure for yourself is what kind of made that possible, so you can start sharing that with people. And I think what's really awesome about that is how both of you are using the exposure and the experiences that you have to be able to give back and share that with others. And I think that's definitely really, really huge. And that kind of leads us into the next question, I feel like, is success can come in so many different forms. You can do it one way that's completely different from somebody else, but it's still really successful. But I think that what's really the foundational piece of all success is that you kind of use your own personal life experiences to leverage into what it is that you do. So Sam, how have you used and leveraged your experiences, your life experiences, to develop what has become a really successful podcast and a budding real estate portfolio?
That's a good question. So it's interesting. With the podcast, I think it's cool because a lot of the people, most of the people who come on have experience. I mean, I'm diversifying now to some newer people, but you know, a lot of times in the beginning of the podcast, I'll have a couple minutes where I'm updating on what's happening with me, you know, the good, bad, and the ugly, right? Because it's not a walk in the park. So I think that's kind of one of the ways that I've done it. I want to do it more. I feel like I prefer to have the shine on other people and not talk about my story so much, but I found that talking about my story, it helps more people, right? So even getting into the lane of just trying to encourage people to make their own podcast about whatever it is, you know, for me, it's helped me to find my voice. Naturally, I'm just kind of a chill, laid back person. But podcasting has helped me to find my voice, helped me to connect with people. And for me, outside of like the real estate stuff, like I want people to find their voice too. And, like I tell people all the time, it doesn't have to be about business. It doesn't have to be about anything related to what I'm doing. Like there are people who like what you like. So, if it's cooking, if it's parenting, podcasting can be therapeutic for some people. Just an opportunity to get their thoughts out, just an opportunity to connect with people within communities that relate to what they relate to. So I think that's another way that I've kind of implemented, I guess, my life experience into what I'm doing. And, I think it'll grow and evolve from here.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Similar question for you, Charles. I think being able to use your life experiences and leverage that into the success that we each have is really important. So I kind of want to hear how you've been able to do that. It's funny, listening to your podcast the other day, one of the things I picked up on it that you said was that, hopefully I don't get the quote wrong, but pretty much you were talking about how once you really start a business and you're successful with that, every other business and things you do after that is more so just trying to see if you like it or not. And it becomes fun. Like you start to do something and you're like, all right, I like that. Let's keep doing it. It's making me money. Let's keep doing it. If not, you move on to the next thing. And using those experiences to kind of build up on your success. So how do you leverage those things to get to where you are right now?
So I feel like the interesting thing about my story is I always tell people, like, I have successful parents. And for me, despite their success, they still left a lot of stuff on the table. Like there's so much more that they want out of life. So yeah, they're successful, but they want a boat. Yeah, they're successful, but they would like to drive that Rolls Royce or that whatever. And so I kind of took their ambition and I found out the people that live that life. And typically those people are professionals and business owners. And so for me, my goal wasn't to work a job and make six figures because I've seen what that gets you. My goal was to be the boss. My goal was to create something that allows me to make seven figures a year, because I figure once I get to the seven-figure number, I can have the boat, I can have the roles, I can live at that level, I can drive what I want to, live where I want to. And so like I would say my experience is unique because a lot of people, they're like, oh yeah, we struggled and we did all these different things, but we came from a good upbringing, but you can still be inspired by that. So you don't got to come from the slums to still get inspired. And so for me, I feel like that's kind of what drives my business ambition, because for me, it wasn't just professional success. It wasn't just getting that raise, getting that promotion, somebody giving me a pat on the back. It was like, I got to build it for myself. I got to do the independent route because I know that that's going to allow me to touch seven figures as opposed to six figures. And so like, that's where I am. However, what I found is, because a lot of times success follows entrepreneurship, is once you get that first one, you don't got to build it from the ground up anymore. Like I tell people, like, get started, get fancy later. But after you've done the first one like that, businesses 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you can just start kind of fancy. You can start kind of nice. You can go out and you can buy whatever you buy. You can invest in the product. You can invest in the marketing. And then also you have people, you have systems, you have connections. And so that first business is the most difficult. Just like law school, that first year is the hardest year. And being married, the first year is the hardest of your marriage. And so in business, that first success is the hardest, but you got to get it. And so you got to put all your energy and effort into getting that first success.
Yeah, that's good. That definitely makes a lot of sense. Sam, I like that thought and that idea of how you take a drive, whether it's a drive from nothing or it's a drive from like ambition and success that you're looking at. What kind of has driven you to be able to do what you're doing right now? I really like that thought.
Yeah. So I kind of want to go back to something Charles said: to get started, get fancy later. And that's a principle that I think that's a principle that's driven me, because when I started, I didn't know anything about podcasting. Like I've heard a few, I didn't know, like I didn't know anything, which is part of why I created the course and the book. Cause it's like, I wasted all this time researching and figuring out along the way. Let me at least give someone a head start where you could have the information and you can go. And so for me, I've just been a lot of figuring out things along the way. And I love that process. Like I'm getting better every day. I'm learning how to sell different ways every day. I'm learning different ways to improve the podcast. Like in the beginning, I didn't know how to record, but now it's like, Donald Du Bois, he has an intro for me now. We have like a couple little commercials, I didn't have any money in the beginning, but I always heard Donald Du Bois on Charles's commercials and on Tweet Talk commercials, and I knew, I'm like, hey, when I get some money, when I start selling and making some money, I'm gonna reinvest and help to and improve my product, right? So for me, it's just the journey and just getting better. Thankfully, I've been able to make a lot of great connections with people, and I love learning. And for me, like, I don't really enjoy my 9 to 5, so this is like what I enjoy. Just connecting with people, just learning and growing and continuing to grow the business, grow the podcast. So for me, the journey is the fun part for me. Money and everything is cool and it'll grow, that'll get better. But just the process of going through it and getting better, that's what drives me, and helping people as well. Like there are people who said, I invested because of this podcast, or I heard this person and I connected with someone on the podcast, or just hearing the responses people have, it's pretty cool too. And it's like, I don't feel like editing, I don't feel like recording on a particular night, but there's people looking out for what we have to put out. So I see that's what drives me, man.
I like that. Yeah, the idea of reinvesting into yourself and into your business, it's huge, because I think one of those things is, even like you're saying, before the money gets there, before you're able to actually do that on a large scale, just even reinvesting into yourself. Like I know you were reading books, you were listening to podcasts, or you're saying you were listening to Charles's podcast, and you picked up on something that was like, I like what he's doing. That's going to be something that I do. And so being able to learn in that way is really big when you're developing something. And like you said, I mean, what'll drive you in that journey is when you're seeing that it's really affecting somebody. That's what has you going late at nights, and that's what has you, even after a long day at your 9 to 5, you're like, this is what I'm gonna do now, so that I don't have to worry about not being able to have time to do this later. That's good. It's really good.
Definitely.
So I think that sets a really good lead up into the next question, because I feel like thinking about reinvestment, thinking about the journey and the people that you'll be helping. The same question for you both. If you could fast forward 30 years down the line and kind of look back on the last 3 decades of impact and legacy that you made, if you could paint that picture, what would that look like? It could be anything you dream of. What would that be? And whoever has their thoughts ready for that, dive in. It's definitely a meaty question if you really think about it, but should
I don't mind taking the lead on this one. But for me, my goal is always large scale ownership. So my office is in downtown LA. My job office and my personal office are in downtown LA. And I'm always looking at the buildings, looking at the parking lots. I'm looking at the opportunities that are there. And so for me, my goal is to build something at that level. And the great thing about that is when you do things like that, you create jobs. And so if I can create high level jobs for people, if I can create the opportunity for people to have their own social club in downtown LA, if I can create the opportunity for African-American contractors, if I can create the opportunity for whomever, like that's kind of where I want to be. I found that like, I want my legacy to be a lot bigger than me, and not just like, did I make money? It's like, how many other people did I help? How many people did I help put on? How many people did I help get jobs and build wealth and be able to provide for their family? That is the goal. And I don't know why I'm that selfless, but I'm glad that I am. Because, I mean, I just feel like a life that's only focused on yourself isn't really a life worth living at. And I don't know if I talked about that on this, but I think I talked on the last podcast. I was just when we just recorded something. And I was like, if you're only living for yourself, like, why even live? Yeah. Like, if you're just living for the sake of feeding yourself, existing, and then dying, you probably could have just not existed. But if you're going to live on this earth, impact somebody, help somebody, improve things for your people, especially you have these communities that are distraught. And they're distraught not because they deserve to be distraught, not because they lack like maybe even intellectual capital. We have the intellectual capital. What happens is we give it to other people. and we give our time and our energy and our money to other people, and then we're over here looking at why we're struggling, and that's why we're robbing ourselves, just like how they go and they do Africa. They rob it of its natural resources, and then we're like, oh, they're poor. No, they're not poor. They got robbed. That's two different things. And so it's like, for me, I want to take all the experience, all the knowledge, all the game that I get and put it back into my community. So it's great because we're so young and we're having success that we got a long runway. So it's like in 30 years, especially with the scope of social media and the internet, it's the sky is the limit. We produce more content, write more blogs, create more TV shows, whatever we're putting out there. Like as long as it's aimed at elevating us, I think we're going to see great things. So for me, it's like, of course, large scale development. I want the skyscrapers. I want my name on top of a building. But like by doing that, I want to have impact for the community, and I want to solve a lot of the problems we complain about. Like that's always my goal.
That's big. That's big. I think, like you said, living not just for yourself, it makes that journey and that impact definitely a lot more fruitful, but just a lot more fun because you're able to see people coming up alongside with you. I forget who said it to me, but one of my friends said to me, like, if I was offered a lot of money right now to get on a jet plane and go to anywhere in the world by myself, or I was offered to take a real cheap trip to Vegas with all my boys, I'm gonna probably pick Vegas with all my boys, because if I go anywhere in the world, be on the nicest jet, that's gonna be lonely. Like, who's gonna be there enjoying it with me? And something as simple as that, think about, like, if you're bringing people with you, it's just more fruitful. There's more things coming from it. All right, Sam, what you got? What's that picture you're painting 30 years from now?
Yeah. So something I'm interested in is real estate development. Something that's like been fascinating me as of late. So I would love to get into real estate development in our communities, and kind of just work with other people to build what we need. Also want to own a lot of rental properties as well. But I think I see the podcast growing towards maybe being some kind of like Black real estate media network or something, because a lot of times and it just dawned on me the other day, a lot of time, like sometimes I look Black real estate, just type in stuff, say, hey, what can I post today or something, and it's very hard to find stuff. And the thing is, it's not that there aren't stories. There are stories, they're just not being covered. So I'm just thinking about different ways to expand outside of like just the podcast and social media. But what I want my legacy to be is just someone who sacrificed to help others. A lot of people around me, people I know, like people on the internet understand, but a lot of people I know, they don't really understand what it is I'm doing. So I think by the time I'm gone, or maybe down the line, they'll get it. Wow, this is why he was doing this. This is why he kept talking to these people or recording. This is why, he was on his phone all this time, to help people. So for me, that's what I want my legacy to be. When I'm gone and people just look back, I just want them to know that everything I did was to help people. It wasn't about me. It's just about helping to change people's mindsets, helping people to believe that they could own, that they deserve to. It's just a matter of the information. So that's what comes to mind when you ask that question.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think a big part of impactful leadership is the willingness to serve, and you guys definitely both show that, not just in your answers, but everything that you all are doing. So we definitely really appreciate the impact that you're making now and the impact that you want to make. We have some time left. I'd like to throw a little curveball question in here. We've been asking everybody so far, and it's a fun one. So it's, if you could pick any one person in the world, alive or dead, to work on one project with, and it could be anything like a music project. It doesn't have to be something related to your business. Who would that be? And what would that project be? It's funny. We've got answers like create a book with Michelle Obama. We've got do a big tour project with Prince. We got speak around the country with Tupac, and we definitely got some fun people and different ideas. So yeah, one of the last questions we always like to ask.
That's a good one. It's a tough one.
Who's the first person that comes to your mind when you think about that?
You know, the funny thing is, I thought about Robert Smith. He's the first person that came to my mind.
Like that.
So I would want to. And what was the question again? If I could do something with one person?
Yeah, like it'd be one type of project or one type
Yeah.
of venture or something like that.
I would want to work on an acquisition with him of a company. And I feel like from there, I would know what that process is like, have context. And I feel like just from that one thing alone, and whatever my role is, if I did a good job, I feel like that could be a snowball. And obviously, he's a black man who's doing this thing and giving back and everything. So I would say that. I think that would set me up with another arm of business for sure.
All right, she's definitely not a bad person at all.
Yeah.
So, man, I feel like, of course, Robert Smith. I feel like at this point, it's like billionaire status. So it's like, what billionaire can you work with? So of course, Robert Smith is somebody that comes to mind. Don Peoples is somebody that comes to mind. And a very unpopular opinion is Kanye. A lot of people, they don't really like what he has to say, but I like the fact that he thinks about things. He doesn't just accept what people say is. Because if that was the case, he wouldn't be doing what he's doing now. A lot of people told him that he couldn't leave Nike and make money.
Yeah.
So it's like people will see you doing things that could set you up to do greatness, and they'll talk you out of it or they'll talk you down from it. So I love that fearlessness about Kanye. But I feel like Don Peoples for where I'm trying to be. I've actually been trying to do that. It's like if I can figure out a way to get in the door with Don Peoples, he's doing a project in downtown LA, which is like maybe like 2 blocks from where I work.
Yeah.
And I was like, if I could just get in the door, I already know you're gonna learn just from seeing the ongoings, every single thing that's going on, who's coming through the door, who is he meeting with, how is he scheduling his day. I always tell people that it's smart to just get around greatness and preferably work for greatness. Don't just say like, I want you to be my mentor. Like, no, go work for them. Go show up at 8 o'clock in the morning. See, are they showing up at 10 o'clock? Are they staying late? Like that is going to take your business to the next level. And it's taking my business to the next level. It's just getting around greatness and then mimicking greatness. So I would say Don Peoples would be the person, and it'll be probably a development close to home because I just understand the Los Angeles market and he's doing a project there. And that would help me do more deals in Los Angeles, because then you're seeing who does he have to talk to? Is he talking to the mayor? Is he talking to city planners? Is he talking to all these different people? And so you get that inside scoop of how to make things move in downtown LA. And then of course Kanye, because he's just great to me, despite being misunderstood.
I like that. Those are good answers, and yeah, those are some powerful people to be connected with. That's really good. Well, yeah, I mean, this was a really great talk. I love being able to hear about the journey, about what's behind the mindset of someone who is developing real impactful businesses and ventures and projects and things like that. And yeah, as we close out, I want to see if either of you have any final closing thoughts you want to share with us, or even if it's a plug for your podcast, for event or something that's coming up, for a course or things you're selling. This is the time we want to make sure we amplify what y'all are doing. And so, yeah, feel free to dive in on that.
Yeah, kind of wanted to address the Kanye thing. Like, I agree that he's misunderstood. And I think if you think about like all the great people in the world and whatever they do, a lot of them are misunderstood. A lot of them people think are crazy. And it's like, if people think you're crazy, you're onto something. This guy has a compound in Montana. He has his deal with his shoes. Like, yeah, he says some crazy stuff, but if you separate that from what he's actually doing in real life, I think there's a lot that we can take from it. And I think as a people, a lot of times we get caught up in the emotions of stuff, like how the things people say make us feel, but we don't look at the big picture, like what really matters. Like, I mean, even with Charles, like there are people who disagree. And I tell people, like, just outside, like, yeah, you may not agree with what he's saying, but look at the bigger picture. Like, look at what he's doing for the people. Like, look at how he's giving back, putting people on. And I can personally attest to it. So all that to say, it's like, hey, if people think you're off your rocker, if people think, you're saying outlandish stuff, more than likely you're onto something. I mean, it's been repeated in history plenty of times, you know. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah. I mean, Elon Musk is one.
Oh yeah.
Dame Dash, of course, is one. And it's frustrating because I feel like when you exist at that level, or when you aspire to exist at that level, you have to kind of study at that level. And so you can't just take what everybody's doing or saying as truth, because then you're going to get what everybody else is doing or saying. And so you have to go and search for answers. And a lot of times those answers don't coincide with what everybody's saying. And so when you then bring those answers to people, they're like, nah, what are you talking about, bro? We all believe this. So keep your mouth shut over there and let us just continue to believe this. So
that's huge. That's huge.
I would say if we're leaving people with 2 cents, I want more of us to do what you're doing, to create something and give value to the world, to build something that's going to help somebody. Like, if we just need more of us to help people, more of us to create things to serve people, more of us to fill that gap and solve problems. If all of us did that, I feel like we will be set. I don't think that Caucasian people are the bar. I don't think we should aim for equality. I think we should aim for greatness. And in a lot of instances, greatness isn't equality. Like, you can't get great if you're just aiming to be equal, especially if you're waiting for somebody to give it to you. Nobody's giving you anything, but we can all build something, especially with social media. Granted, we could have done it without social media, or without the internet. But now that we have these tools, let's lean on them and let's create something. Let's put something out there. Let's get that product. Let's get that podcast. Let's get that book. Let's get that blog. Whatever you have inside of you that you can help give and help solve a problem for us, I want to see it. We got 4 more months in 2020, but I don't think we should even stop at 2020. I don't think we should stop depending on whoever the president becomes or remains. We have to solve our own problems. And if they help, great. If they don't, we already solved the problem. So that's kind of where I am.
I like that. That's definitely a good note to leave people on, because I feel like if you are striving for what you're striving for and you're going to go get it, it shouldn't matter who's in front of you. That's big.
100%.
Yeah. I appreciate you both. This was really good. I love the gems you guys left. I love the dialogue that you guys had here, and we really appreciate it here at Mint, you guys taking your time out for this. And yeah, we'll make sure we link up and put your podcast, put all the things that you're doing, of course, you're selling, so that people, when we're watching this, you can dive deeper into what both of these gentlemen have to say. They have some great stuff to say. They're talking to a lot of great people, and you want to keep plugged in and like Charles just said, just lean into these things that can make you great. So we appreciate it. And yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man.